So are there any questions this afternoon? Any kind of question is okay.
I have a question.
Please.
We kind of talk about this practice of being very practical. Like, you do this and that's about it. But I also see, since I got you, there's this like spirit, mountain spirit, and all this God, like protector, and like all these things that aren't really practical, I guess. So I guess my question is, how is it relevant to our practice?
So you haven't met the mountain God? Oh, you should meet him. Yeah, so I talk about this all the time. His whole talk was about this. It's about experience versus some kind of theory or belief or faith. You know, I come from the United States, so everything's about faith in God and all that kind of stuff, right? But then on the other end of the continuum is this direct experience. So the reason I ask you, did you meet the mountain God? So meeting the mountain God would be a direct experience, right? Probably shock the hell out of you. And then the other end is just believing in the mountain God. So there's a mountain God, a Sanchangak over there, right? So where I come from in the United States, they would love the Sanchangak, because mainly around where I'm from, it's Native Americans, and Native Americans have something like a mountain God. Anyway, they would think, well, that's just the way things are. So what happens is, even though this is a Buddhist temple, right? So Buddhist temples in Korea have standard kinds of things in them. And one of them is a Sanchangak. One of them is whatever that is. So those things are just there because they're standard things, and people expect that in Korea. So when Americans come here, I don't know, are there any Americans here? Oh, good. So when Americans come here, they're always looking around thinking, wow, that's really good. That's the Wam Sunjung altar. That's really cool. And then they look here and they think, wow, that's really cool. But what's all that crap in the picture there, you know? So that kind of thing is always happening. So to sell Zen to people, we put it in a package, right? Because nobody's going to buy Zen. Zen is probably the most boring thing ever. Like completely and utterly boring, right? But that's what it's supposed to be. But then it comes in a package, you know. So like when I first started practicing, I was doing Tibetan Buddhism. It was a long time ago. So Tibetan Buddhism definitely comes in a package, right? So if I was a Tibetan monk, I'd have on dark maroon robes and maybe some yellow something or other, and I wouldn't cut my hair that often. And then when you go to the Japanese temple, suddenly they're wearing black robes, and everybody is real, right? And then you move over to the Korean temple, and everything's a little more relaxed. We're wearing gray robes, which are a lot better, of course. And the pictures are all different, right? So any kind of teaching that you do is going to have a context, and that will lead you to have different kinds of experiences. So the last 10 years I mostly lived in Singapore. So Singapore is interesting because it has all these religions, and they're not killing each other. And you can go and visit those things and see it, right? So across the street from our Zen center in Singapore is a Taoist temple. Anybody here ever been to a Taoist temple? Oh, good. So you know how boring that is. So, and right next to it is a Tibetan temple. So, wow, that's got a lot of stuff going on. And then on our side of the street are the Zen, so-called Zen temples. And they're kind of in the middle between those two things. Nothing happening, so much crap happening you don't even know what's happening. And then in the middle is the Zen temple. So that's always true, what you experience. So it'll always come with a context. The big thing is don't attach to the context, right? Because it's about your experience. So if you like, I don't know what, like go to China and then go visit Bodhidharma's cave, right? It's probably the most boring place in the world, and yet this big thing happened there. Right? But it's nothing, it's just a hole in the ground on the top of Mount Sung. So that's always true. So don't attach to the woo stuff. Zen is about looking inside and finding your true self, which, as you already know, if you've been to a Kilche, is pretty boring. It's probably more interesting driving around town with him driving, riding around town with him driving. Right? And it's based on experience. So everything he was talking about is experience. So you can have a theory about driving, right? And then you can take a test. But the most important part is when they, at least in the United States, to give a driver's license, you have to prove that you can drive, so they take you out for a drive to see if you can actually do it, right? So that's the real part. Your theory of driving, I don't know, are there theories? Yeah, there's probably theories of driving. But most important is the experience that you have that allows you to actually do it. Because your idea of driving a car is, it's okay, but it's not going to save your life. So that's true of cooking. It's true of anything. Right? So we come here to have an experience. All the stuff really doesn't make much difference. I mean, in all of the United States, we don't have anything half as nice as this room. But it's not important, it's what you actually get. So Bodhidharma asked Wei Ke asked Bodhidharma, Master, I can't rest my mind. And then Bodhidharma holds out his hand and says, give me your mind. Right? So he's not asking for an explanation of mind. So if you study European philosophy, you can read about theories of mind. Well, this is the phenomenological theory over here, and this is the existential theory over here, and this is the blah, blah, blah. But sitting for 5 minutes, you'll know more than any of those theories if you look inside. Because it's based on this experience. But of course it's boring, so who wants to do it? So we spice it up a little bit, we walk around, we chant, we've got great pictures hanging on the wall, we got all this stuff, but these are techniques to push you towards actually experiencing what you really are, which is what Zen is all about. Find your true self and then help the world. So it's always about experience. In Zen, you probably notice we don't care what you believe, right? So I was raised a Christian, and you were raised what? Jewish. A Jew, right? So actually it doesn't make any difference because God probably doesn't care. The problem is, what is this God thing, right? So everybody would encounter that question. So that's the faith, belief versus the experience thing. So everything in Zen is about experience. We don't really care what you believe. Okay? So don't worry. Don't attach to the scenery. Find out what's really inside. And then if you're a Jewish person sitting and meditating, or I was raised a Presbyterian, or a Catholic, or a Muslim. So those external things can be kind of a distraction, right? I think I've had maybe 3 Muslim students in my whole life, and they left because they don't like the scenery. But that's the way it is. It's all about, your question and then your experience. So the answer to the great question of life and death is not conceptual. I wish it was, because it could save us a lot of time. We could just print up a pamphlet, hand it out, say, oh, this is it here, read this. Right? It doesn't work. It's based on experience. Any other questions? Yeah.
On your street, there's like saying the tongue has no bone. What does that mean?
The what?
The tongue has no bone.
Tongue has no bone.
Oh, bone. I thought you said moon. I was going to say, yeah, that's correct. The tongue has no moon. The tongue has no bone. Yeah, it's the same point, It's about experience. So I sit up here and talk, blah, 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 blah. What did you get? Maybe you got a joke and a laugh or something. But all these words are actually, I think the best way to think about words is that they're pointing at something, right? The explanation itself is not it. So when you go to school and you study something and then you take a test and you write the answers to the questions, that ain't it. So all these, particularly like Zen teaching, is a style of teaching, like Kongan, right? So if you understand the Kongan, that isn't going to help you at all. In fact, that's a negative. But that Kongan is pointing towards something, right? And that's that thing that happens. I don't know how it happens. I don't know where it comes from, and I don't really care. The question is, did it happen? So usually people get attached to Kongans because, number one, they're designed not for understanding, they're designed for experience. So you sit around, I'm gonna understand Zen, this is gonna be great, and then I'll be famous and my mother will finally like me. But that isn't the way it works, right? So it's about, right? So when Bodhidharma asked Wei Ke, well, give me your mind and I'll put it at rest. And Wei Ke just stands there and says, huh? Right? Because he can't find his mind. Yeah. So that's it. Hello. So that's pointing, they're just like pointers pointing at some kind of experience. And Zen is radically over on the experience end of the spectrum rather than the belief and faith and holy end of the continuum. That's what's so great about Zen, because you can get away with about anything. Okay? Yeah, it's the same point. It's all about experience. Yes?
I have a question about bowing practice.
About what?
Bowing.
Oh, bowing. I thought you said vowing. Vowing is good too.
So good. Because this kind of practice is quite physically challenging. Like there are people like me who have difficulties doing prostrations.
Right.
And as we get older, it's actually quite common in some of the Zen centers that most of the students cannot bow.
Oh, really?
So it's like only one person bowing, the rest of them are not. So,
sounds like an American Zen. What?
What's the suggestion? What should we do? Should we abandon bowing or should we turn around?
Yeah, do standing bows. There's one, I'm not going to say who it is. So, and don't judge this person. When they do a bow, they go like this. So that's okay. So that's just a style of practice. Actually, the style is not important, right? It's not important. So like with bowing, we do it together. So that's part of the style, right? And we do it not too fast, like this morning, you don't know this, but I have this tendency to always speed up because I bow about twice as fast as we did this morning. So I'm going, oh wait, you idiot, you're leading this, you got to slow down, so we kind of, the middle path, remember that? So you don't bow too fast, you don't bow too slow, but you bow. But then not everybody can do it, so you can just do a standing bow. So some people do a full standing bow, some people do a little dinky bow, and some people do a bow. And that's okay, it's no problem. It's just that we're kind of like practicing together, so you kind of want to go along with everybody else, or at least act like you're going along with everybody else. And that's just a technique. So yeah, that's not important. It's probably nice that one person at your Zen center can do 108 bows. I don't know. It's always true, but it'd be nice. So we have 4 basic kinds of practicing that we do. We do sitting, and we do chanting, and we do bowing, and we do what?
Eating or walking?
Eating. Right. We also do, sitting and walking are kind of like together. Yeah. So those are all just different styles of allowing you to experience your own mind. And it's really easy to do because your mind is always here. I read last week that, I think it was in the United States, physicists measured a zapposecond. So a zapposecond is, let me get this right, it's 1/1000th of a trillionth of a second.
Wow.
Okay, 1/1000th of a trillionth of a second. So what they're measuring are subatomic particle motions or something. So 1/1000th of a trillionth of a second, that's not very long, right? But actually Zen is faster than that even, right? So that's what we call just now mind. So just now mind is not that long. It's faster, right? So the Diamond Sutra says, past mind, you can't get a hold of past mind, right? Did you ever get a hold of your past? Yeah, no, I know you didn't. You can't get a hold of your past mind because it doesn't exist, right? And then future mind, Bodhidharma asks, well, show me your mind, or give me some of your future mind. Well, you can't do that either, right? So whether you're a baby, you're young or old, all you get is this less than a zapposecond because it's always going by, right? In fact, in Zen, we say time doesn't exist. It's just an idea. So you can think about the past. That doesn't mean you have the past. And you can think about the future. Right? You think about driving, oh God, and you get all worked up and emotional about something that doesn't even exist. That's kind of humorous. Well, it's not. It's called suffering. So this is always happening. But you're controlled by your thinking, so you don't think about it that way. But if you stop for a second and think about it, then you're thinking. So Zen is about this direct experience. This is why we're always hitting the floor. which is, by the way, really stupid. But it's not intended to be smart. It's not intended to be clever. It's only intended... Okay, so that already happened. So whether it was clever or not clever, whether it was a zapposecond or 1,000 years, doesn't make any difference because you all experienced that. Right? In fact, that was enlightenment. I just did you a big, big favor from a Buddhist point of view. How do you feel? You're welcome. Yeah, cool, huh? So that's why Zen uses these Kongans, because what? Right? The first time you hear the Kongan, unless the answer flashes into your mind, it's like, huh? You know, because it doesn't make any sense. But that's a technique. That inability to understand is a technique that's pointing towards, hopefully, direct experience. Whatever that is. Any other questions? Did that answer your question? No, it didn't, but we massaged the concepts a lot. Yeah, sure.
You ask one question to me, and why that answer comes up to me after that?
Oh yeah, that happens all the time. In fact, that's usually what happens. Yeah, when you leave the interview.
Finish interview, right?
Yeah, right.
After it comes up.
Yeah, right.
Comes up.
Why?
But that answer is for just now.
Right.
But it's not just now. You already passed. So
right.
Why that kind of thinking?
I don't know why. But my theory, excuse me, I have a theory about it. My theory is because you're attached to the interview situation. As soon as you leave it, boom, it appears. Yeah, happens all the time. In fact, most of the Kongans that any of us answered was not in the interview room. Because the interview is designed to be a hindrance. Then if you can let go in the interview room, then you have an experience of what it's really about. Interesting, huh? Yeah, it's designed to be crap. I mean, I'm sitting there and you're sitting there and I ask you a question. Right? It's a hindrance, actually, or we call it a hindrance. That just means it creates a situation a lot of people are going to be attached to. Like usually people think, oh, this is just like being in school, and if I raise my hand and the answer that I give to the teacher is wrong, I'm going to be a bad person. That's the way people think. Right? But if you just let go of that for a second, I mean, the teacher has Buddha nature, you have Buddha nature, the cushions have Buddha nature, and the stick has Buddha nature. So everything's the same. So it's designed to be a hindrance. So you have to let go. It's pretty benign hindrances. But if you let go of it for just a second, boom! And this has happened to everybody here, right? Everybody here has answered a Kongan, right? So in that situation, that answer will appear without any of these hindrances. So you let go of the hindrances, then boom! Ha! But usually it happens after you leave the interview room. Yeah. Right? Right. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, wow, cool. So what I have to do is let go for a second, and this is it. It's not good or bad, but we'll think it's good or bad. Like, wow, this room is great. I mean, just look at the paintings. You know? So you think that's good. But if you're at the Zen Center where I came from in the United States, you think, oh, this is crap. I mean, I've seen better Zen centers in St. Petersburg. Yeah. But it's not about any of that. It's about returning to your true self, letting go and returning, and then using that to help the world. Okay? Yeah, don't attach to anything. What?
It takes time to me.
There is no time. Yeah, so we think all that kind of stuff, right? It's about waking up just now. Because that's all there is, except that doesn't exist either because it just went by. So you're young, right? I'm old. And you're somewhere in the middle. but for all of us, there's only this, right? Really none of those things make any difference, but we think that it makes a difference. And because we think we have that hindrance, so you just have to wake up and drive, or wake up and make the soup. And that's actually your whole life. That's what Zen Master Sun Sun called moment world. So we live in a moment world, but we think we live somewhere else, right? We think we live somewhere else. And that's a human being's problem. You know, like Russia's trying to return to the 18th century or something. And the United States is trying to go into the 24th century or something. Who knows? And some people are trying to get a lot of stuff, and some people want to get rid of stuff. And all that stuff is changing. Boom, 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 boom. So actually there is only the boom, boom. So just about every Kongan is about that. It's very interesting. So we're always telling this story about Bodhidharma and Wei Ke. You know, give me your mind and I'll put it to rest. Then Wei Ke goes, you know, and then he kind of wakes up. That isn't when he gets his real enlightenment. His real enlightenment is later, and this is a really interesting story. So Bodhidharma and Wei Ke are walking up this mountain. It's called Few Houses Mountain in China. So they're walking up the mountain. And since Bodhidharma is older, he's leading. And then Wei Ke is walking behind him up the mountain. So they're walking up the mountain. Got it? Okay. They're walking up the mountain. Then Bodhidharma turns around and looks back at him, at Wei Ke, and says, "Where are we going?" So that sounds like a stupid question, but actually it's not. So then Wei Ke says, "Master, go straight." Then Bodhidharma says, "If that's the way it is, we cannot take even one step." And then Wei Ke gets enlightenment, his big enlightenment. So, if you were Wei Ke and Bodhidharma said, "Where are we going?" how could you answer? Well, tell me on Friday. You have till Friday to think about that one. That's a great. Zen teaching can be really good. Any other questions? Yes?
The Dharma said that you cannot find your mind if you're looking with your mind.
Yeah, right. Whatever that means. Yeah, it's meaningless. But what it does is poke at him. So if you come out of an interview feeling like you've been poked, like, you idiot, like, you don't even know that, right? So what's happening is nobody's actually attacking you. What's going on is they're poking at your thinking mind, your attachment mind, so that you can let go of it. Does it work? I don't know. Most of the time it doesn't, right? Particularly with me. It never worked. But something will happen. Like this, he has to go cook, right? Bye. So one reason that Zen teaching is so abstract and kind of vague is because every situation, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment, is different. So, like, what does it mean? Well, you don't know what it means because you don't know what's going to happen in the next, what did I call it? Zappo second. You have no idea, right? We say cause and effect, but that doesn't help you much, right? Or we talk about old age, sickness, and death. Well, for sure, you're going to get older, maybe. And I may not get any older because I could easily die before the talk is over. So, what are you going to do? So all you have is this moment. We call that just do it, or moment world. And that's where you really live. But you think you live somewhere else. Good luck. Any other questions? Yes. He's going to help with dinner. It's not that he doesn't like your question. He's Polish, so be careful. Yes.
All these Kongans, all these stories, they always happen in some ancient China,
yeah, right.
Centuries ago, and there's always some monks involved. Like, why don't we have any modern examples? Like, nobody had enlightenment since then, or always old stories.
I think that's a kind of style because it came from there when the theory is that these Buddhist teachers borrowed that technique from Taoism. So, and it happened, in the 8th century in China, so that's kind of why. It's kind of like when you read about Christianity, you ever notice it's always in Israel somewhere, somebody doing something. So that's just a style. Yeah, that's why. But if you look at the behind point, the point of it is to just engage your intuitive mind, right? So if you're going to attach to Chinese history, your intuitive mind is going to be out of the picture. And there's a lot of them that don't have cultural elements to them, right? Like, why do you have two eyes? So that could be the 8th century in China. You could ask that, but I could ask it right here, right now. So what you say is true. That's a style. It's just like the paintings and whatever. I know in the United States, people are always trying to make American Zen paintings. It's always crap, but it's a good idea. And it really doesn't make any difference. It's just a style that we use. if you read like Whole World is a Single Flower, 365 Kongans, you'll notice a lot of them involve Koreans and Korean stuff. And then there's Christian Kongans in there. There's Taoist Kongans. Horrible translation, but they're in there. Yeah, it's a style. It's a kind of style like we inherited it. It's not necessary. I'm sure you can. The mouse eats cat food, but the cat bowl is broken. So is that a Chinese mouse? Or is that a mouse from New York City? Or is he from Tel Aviv? It doesn't say, and it's not actually important. So that's just style. I'm sure it turns some people off. If you don't like Chinese, or, if you're practicing Japanese Buddhism, then you'll get all kinds of Japanese Kongans. And maybe the Koreans won't like that, and the Americans really didn't like it, and now they do like it. So that stuff is always changing. Any other questions? Well, that's enough for today. What? Oh, God. Yes.
What if you're afraid of mice and you get the mouse Kongan?
Yeah, that's always true. Like some people, well, you don't experience this, but maybe experience it for yourself. Some people cannot answer the simplest Kongan you can possibly imagine because they're attached to some element, something in the Kongan. Like they don't like dogs, so they hate Joju and they think that Kongan sucks. Or they love dogs and they don't like to see dogs conceptually manipulated like that. Right? So that's always going on. So you have to let go of whatever your thing is, right? So that goes on all the time. There used to be a Kongan I didn't like at all. What was it? I can't remember now. Anyway, the Kongan will, if you're attached to it, you're attached to it in the context of your mind and your culture and your language and your whatever, right? So probably if you're asking these Chinese Kongans to Japanese people, they don't like that Chinese stuff because the Chinese have always been giving them crap. Probably the same thing is true of Koreans. I don't know. But yet Korean culture is so, historically associated with China. So yeah, that's just the kind of like context. So you have to jump out of the context and then the answer appears. Okay. Well, thank you for coming and practicing. That's the most important thing. Do it. If you just do it, then you get it. Thinking, you get a headache, right? I call that an existential headache. So I've had an existential headache now for almost 80 years. So really good idea is to just let go and then come back to this. Then you get it. Okay? So thank you for coming and practice.